What if you died tomorrow morning, your heart still clenched tight around that old betrayal from your brother, the one over the family inheritance that shattered trust 5 years ago, leaving you waking at 3 a.m. replaying every cruel word he said, feeling the same bitter taste coat your tongue like copper? What if tonight, as you lay your head on the pillow carrying that deliberate hatred you've justified 1,000 times, your heart simply stops? The Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 1022, teaches with absolute clarity that particular judgment follows death immediately, not in days, not in years, but in the very instant your soul separates from your body, determining whether you enter heaven, purgatory, or hell, based entirely on the state of your soul in that precise moment.
But here's what most Catholics never consider, what keeps them comfortable in their justified grudges. What happens to a soul carrying deliberate, conscious hatred? Matthew 6:14-15 leaves no room for interpretation. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Not metaphor, not suggestion, literal doctrine. Where does a soul go when it arrives at judgment, clutching rancor like a weapon, convinced the offender doesn't deserve mercy, that the wound is too deep to heal?
In Ávila, Spain, around the year 1550, precisely during the turbulent period when she was reforming the Carmelite order against fierce opposition, Saint Teresa of Ávila, born Teresa Sánchez de Cepeda y Ahumada on March 28, 1515, to a converso noble family of 12 children, received a vision so physically visceral, so spiritually devastating, it marked every single day of the remaining 29 years of her life. This woman, later proclaimed Doctor of the Church, canonized on October 12, 1622 by Pope Gregory XV, after exhaustive scrutiny by the Spanish Inquisition under renowned theologians like Domingo Bañez, detailed this experience in her autobiography's chapter 32, a text that Pope Paul V fully examined and approved in 1610 after years of theological review. Her over 400 extant letters, her founding of 17 reformed Carmelite convents across Spain, her mystical treatises, like The Interior Castle, examined by the most rigorous minds of the Counter-Reformation, all attest to her credibility. These weren't solitary fancies scribbled in secret. These were revelations shared with confessors like St. Peter of Alcantara and St. John of the Cross, who cross-examined her under spiritual direction protocols designed to detect deception or demonic interference. St. Bridget of Sweden's visions underwent similar papal vetting in the 14th century, approved by multiple popes.
But Teresa's revelation targeted something more intimate, more personal, her own soul's fractures, her own venial sins that opened cracks toward damnation, much like the everyday grudges you and I nurse under the perfectly justified guise of, I have every right to feel this way after what they did. Today, you're going to discover not vague platitudes about letting go or empty advice to pray more. You're going to encounter 3 documented, theologically grounded, eternally consequential realities of dying unforgiving. The direct path to hell's eternal isolation that Teresa herself glimpsed prepared for her, the prolonged chains of purgatory's self-inflicted torment that St. Catherine of Genoa witnessed in ecstasy, and the scriptural fork in the road that split 2 brothers' eternal fates forever over one choice.
These revelations align perfectly with Catholic dogma. Catechism 1861 equates deliberate hatred of neighbor to homicide before God, yet they come through private revelations the Church never condemned. instead preserving them as urgent warnings pushing us toward charity's refining fire. But to grasp why Teresa's terror should feel so close to your own heart, why her vision wasn't about those people, but about you and me, you need to understand who she was before grace shattered her comfortable spirituality. Teresa entered the monastery of the Incarnation in Ávila at age 20, not out of burning mystical desire, but fleeing marriage prospects after her mother's death left her grieving, and her father's strict piety suffocated her.
She was charming, witty, vain about her beauty. Her own words admit she loved being admired, enjoyed long parlor conversations with visiting nobility more than prayer, read secular romance novels that distracted her from the divine office. Her health collapsed repeatedly, migraines that blinded her for days, fainting spells the nuns attributed to demonic attack, and in 1538, a mysterious paralysis that left her unable to move for 4 days, doctors pronouncing her dead, her grave already dug. But worse than physical suffering were her venial faults, as she called them. Sharp words snapped at sister nuns over petty convent squabbles about whose turn it was to sweep. Vanity in her intellectual reading that puffed her up during chapter meetings. Neglect of deeper contemplative prayer because she preferred the easier comforts of vocal recitation and family visits that fed her ego. Her father, Alonso de Cepeda, a devout wool merchant known for his charity to the poor, died in 1543. Her mother, Beatrice, had passed when Teresa was only 14, leaving a wound of abandonment she buried under social performance. By 1550, at age 35, years of lukewarm religious life had calcified into spiritual mediocrity. She was a nun. She prayed. She kept the rule. But her heart?
Divided, distracted, filled with small resentments she'd never confessed as sins. And then one winter afternoon during prayer in her cell, something ripped through the veil. Witnesses who lived with her, sisters like Juana de Almada, her biological sister who also became a nun, and her confessor Gaspar Daza, who documented these events in sworn testimony, noted her sudden trances. Eyes fixed upward, unnaturally wide, pupils dilated black as coal, body rigid as carved wood, sweat beading her forehead despite the December chill seeping through stone walls, breath shallow and rasping like someone drowning on dry land. In an instant, her guardian angel appeared. Not the soft, gentle figure of devotional art, but the seraphic being she would describe in later visions as having eyes like live coals, 6 wings of flame, a presence so overwhelming it felt like standing before a furnace door flung open. This angel seized her hand with a grip that burned, pulling her soul violently out of her body through what she described as a narrow passage in the earth, like a sewer pipe, she wrote, barely wide enough to crawl through on elbows and knees, walls slimy with something viscous and cold that clung to her skin like rotten oil. The air thickened to the consistency of tar, each breath a labor, heat rising from below like a blacksmith's forge gone catastrophically out of control, her skin blistering in the vision, lungs burning with the stench of sulfur mixed with charred bone, and something she could only describe as the smell of despair itself, metallic and nauseating, coating her tongue and throat. No light penetrated this passage, but worse than darkness were the sounds, screams of the damned reverberating off stone, layered voices creating a hellish chorus, a noblewoman's shrill wail over lost jewels, morphing into the eternal shriek of regret, a monk's deep growl of pride, isolated from all communion, a merchant's sob over wealth he'd hoarded, echoing with endless. She tumbled downward, unable to stop, unable to resist, and landed hard in her reserved place, a cell no bigger than a narrow coffin, carved from living rock,
walls radiating flames that didn't illuminate but pressed inward, eating darkness, tearing at her soul like claws, stripping flesh from bone in an endless, repeating torture without the mercy of unconsciousness or death. Chains materialized from her own thoughts, every piece of gossip she'd shared about the prioress coiled around her throat like iron. Every resentment toward the sister who criticized her prayer life became shackles on her wrists. Every moment of lukewarm charity toward the elderly nuns who annoyed her transformed into weights, dragging her deeper into the pit. These weren't metaphors.
In the vision, she felt their physical reality, the cutting of metal into spiritual flesh, the impossibility of movement or escape. I felt myself dying of an agony so acute, she wrote later, her hand trembling as she penned the words her confessor commanded her to record, that all the physical sufferings I have endured in my entire life, and doctors say I have suffered some of the worst pains bodies can bear, all of that was nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to what I felt in that place. And to know that this would never end, that the torment would never diminish even by the smallest degree, that every moment would be as intense as the first, stretching into an eternity that swallowed hope itself. This knowledge was a fire greater than the flames.
Physical pain, she explained to her nuns afterward, has the mercy of fainting, of shock numbing the nerves. But soul pain? It remains at full intensity forever, every nerve of the soul exposed and screaming. And the worst part, the detail that haunted her every night for 40 years until her death in 1582. Christ appeared at the edge of that pit, his face torn between justice and mercy, and spoke words that shattered her. This place was prepared for you by your own choices, Teresa. Your venial sins left unchecked, your charity grown cold, your resentments nurtured like pets. If you had died in that state, refusing to confess, refusing to change, this is where your free will would have led you. Wait no longer. Mercy triumphs over judgment, but only for those who choose it while they still have breath.
He yanked her out. She woke in her cell, screaming, sisters surrounding her bed, the smell of sulfur still clinging to her habit. For weeks, she couldn't eat without vomiting, couldn't sleep without nightmares. But the imprint? 40 years of radically reformed life, founding 17 convents under brutal opposition, walking barefoot through Spanish winters, enduring Inquisition investigations, writing mystical theology that would guide millions. God revealed hell to her not to paralyze her in fear, but to propel her into holiness. Her grudges, left unaddressed, truly merited that cell. And if you've dismissed a family slight as, they started it, or, I have every right to feel this way, feel that slime-coated wall closing around you. Her vision screams your eternal risk.
But the true horror of that chamber unfolded not just in her own prepared cell, but in the souls she glimpsed nearby. And this is where her testimony becomes a mirror held to your face. These weren't murderers, weren't adulterers or blasphemers in the obvious sense. These were souls damned by what the Church calls sins against charity, deliberate grudges that ruptured the supernatural life of God flowing through them, breaking the one commandment Jesus called his own: love one another as I have loved you. John 13:34. Catechism 1861 is surgically precise. Hatred of the neighbor is a sin by which man wishes his neighbor some evil. It is contrary to charity. When one deliberately desires grave harm to the neighbor, this becomes grave sin, mortal sin, a sin that kills divine life in the soul.
Teresa saw this doctrine made visible. Souls twisted not by headline-worthy crimes, but by charity broken on the anvil of justified resentment. She saw a woman. Teresa didn't name her, likely someone she'd known. whose entire eternity had been sealed by a 30-year grudge against her sister over a marriage arrangement their father made. Not murder, not theft, a grudge. The woman had died suddenly, an accident, with that hatred clutching her heart like a fist that wouldn't open. And Catechism 1035 confirmed what Teresa witnessed. To die in mortal sin without repenting and accepting God's merciful love means remaining separated from Him forever by our own free choice. This wasn't hell's flames doing the separating. It was her own will, frozen in the moment of death, choosing isolation over reconciliation.
Teresa heard her scream over and over. She didn't deserve forgiveness. I was right. And the echo of that self-justification became her eternal torture. Righteousness turned to acid burning from within. 1 John 3:15 suddenly lost all metaphorical softness. Everyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Not poetic exaggeration, literal spiritual diagnosis. Your decade-old wound from your parents' favoritism towards your sibling? That secret satisfaction when their marriage failed? The thought, they finally got what they deserved. If you died tonight without confessing it, without genuinely releasing it, Teresa's vision shows exactly what cell is being prepared by your own hands.
Her terror birthed reformation. Within 2 years, she'd founded St. Joseph's in Ávila, the first of her austere houses where nuns owned nothing, practiced silence, devoted themselves to intercessory prayer for souls. But another great mystic, a widow in Italy to the noble Fieschi family that had produced 2 popes, was forced into an arranged marriage at 16 to the wealthy merchant Giuliano Adorno. It was a disaster. He was unfaithful, gambled away their fortune, mocked her attempts at piety. For 10 years, she lived in bitter misery, her own heart hardening into resentment so deep she contemplated suicide.
But in 1473, during a confession at San Benedetto convent, grace struck like lightning, a mystical conversion so complete she spent the next day sobbing in her room, seeing all her sins as if written in fire. From that moment until her death in 1510, she lived in nearly constant mystical union with God, serving plague victims in Genoa's hospitals, sleeping 2 hours a night, and receiving revelations about purgatory so detailed that her spiritual directors, including the Benedictine priest Marabotto and her companion Ettore Vernazza, spent years transcribing her ecstatic dictations into what became her famous treatise on purgatory, a text approved by theologians and referenced in her canonization process in 1737 by Pope Clement XII.
In these trances, witnessed by dozens, her body would go rigid, face pale as marble, sometimes levitating inches off the ground as her scribes scrambled to record her words. And what she saw made her weep with both agony and joy. Purgatory souls enduring not abstract flames, but the specific fires their specific sins had forged. The air in her visions turned thick as ash, gray flakes sticking in her throat, like the dust of regret that wouldn't wash down. She could taste it, dry, bitter, the residue of words unsaid, mercies withheld. Souls appeared before her in layers, some near heaven's threshold, radiating soft light, others deep in fire trenches, where she could barely make out their forms through smoke. One soul in particular, a Genoese merchant who died just months before, someone Catherine had known peripherally, stood in flames up to his chest. His crime? Envy. Not theft or fraud, but burning envy over a business competitor
who'd secured a lucrative shipping contract through the Doge's favor. The merchant had spent 15 years replaying the injustice, telling everyone who'd listen how he'd been cheated, how his rival didn't deserve success, how God himself had been unfair. He died of apoplexy during one of these rants, his face purple with rage, the competitor's name on his lips like a curse. In Catherine's vision, that soul relived the betrayal hourly, not as memory, but as present tense experience.
The salt sting of tears mixing with metaphorical blood from heart wounds that reopened each time. Chains of his own repeated phrase, "He stole what was mine," wrapped around his chest heavier than ship anchor rope, unyielding, burning, growing tighter with every attempt to justify himself. His voice, when he spoke to Catherine, was hoarse as wind-scoured rock, raw from screaming. 1,000 years suffering here is preferable to standing before God's face, still stained by this grudge. Purify me fully. I can't bear to carry this to him. This shocked Catherine. The soul wasn't asking for release from pain. He was begging for the pain to do its complete work, to burn away every molecule of resentment before he dared approach perfect charity. God wasn't imposing the fire. The soul's own will demanded purification.
She heard Christ explain, "I honor their freedom. They chose envy on earth. Now they chose purity here. But the process is long because the rust runs deep. Every layer must be scraped away." Rust. That word haunted Catherine. In Italian, ferrugem, corrosion that eats through metal if left untreated, weakening structure until collapse. Unforgiveness was spiritual rust, she realized, corroding the soul's capacity to love, and purgatory was the painful chemical bath, removing it layer by layer. But here's what made her weep. It didn't have to take so long. Souls who'd forgiven on earth, even imperfectly, even through gritted teeth, passed through purgatory like arrows through mist. But those who'd nursed grudges, centuries, millennia in some cases, she was told, until every trace dissolved.
She saw a noblewoman, dead 60 years, still in purgatory's deepest trench, flames white hot, because she'd refused to forgive her daughter for marrying beneath their station. 60 years of fire refinement, all avoidable if she'd uttered genuine words of release before her heart attack. The waste, the sheer waste, made Catherine dedicate the rest of her life to teaching forgiveness, personally reconciling with her husband Giuliano so completely, he converted and joined her in hospital ministry. Her biography notes an extraordinary detail. After one particularly intense vision in 1499, she approached a family in Genoa, torn apart by a property dispute that had lasted 3 generations.
Using what she'd seen in purgatory, she described to them, without any natural way of knowing, the exact torments their deceased grandfather was enduring for starting the feud. They verified details through old letters. All parties reconciled within a week, funded masses for his soul, and Catherine claimed she saw him released in a vision 2 months later, ascending like a spark through the silvery mist of purgatory's upper reaches toward heaven's gate. This is the doctrine of purgatory perfectly illustrated. Catechism 1030 to 1032 teaches that those who die in God's grace, but still imperfectly purified, undergo purification to achieve the holiness necessary to enter heaven's joy. But notice, those who die in God's grace, the state of grace requires charity alive in the soul.
Deliberate, unforgiven hatred breaks charity. Catechism 1856 calls it mortal sin. So the souls Catherine saw suffering for unforgiveness weren't in mortal sin anymore.
They'd repented at the point of death,
made imperfect contrition, clung to God's mercy by a thread. But the habit of grudge holding had carved such deep channels in their souls that even after death, even with mortal sin forgiven, the purification process stretched across centuries. If you're thinking, well, purgatory's not hell, at least they're saved, consider Catherine's other revelation. The suffering in deep purgatory, she said, exceeds any earthly torture. The difference from hell? Hell's pain comes without hope or end. Purgatory's comes with both, but that doesn't make the fire less hot. One soul told her, "I'd rather suffer the worst martyrdom on earth for 70 years than spend one day in this fire." But they chose it. They insisted on it. Because the alternative, standing before infinite purity while still clutching finite grudges, would be an agony even greater. You've tried forgiving that friend who backstabbed you, you say. You've let it go mentally. But does your stomach still clench when their name comes up? Do you scroll their social media hoping to see them failing? That's the rust Catherine saw, and it's already calculating your purgatory time if you die tonight without sacramental confession and genuine contrition. Before we see the exact fork in the road that split two brothers' eternal destinies over one choice, one dying in peace, one in torment, pause for this. If these visions have stirred that buried wound you carry, the one you've justified for so long it feels like part of your identity now, you need to act while grace is knocking. Like this video right now, not for my channel's sake, but because the YouTube algorithm will push it to other Catholics chained in family silences, trapped in justified grudges, convinced their case is different, their wound too deep. Subscribe with notifications on, because we're releasing a full series on Mercy's arsenal, specific confession tactics, spiritual warfare prayers against demonic oppression that feeds unforgiveness, the exact steps saints used to forgive the humanly unforgivable.
But here's the most crucial action. Name your offender out loud right now. Say, "Jesus, I release their name to your mercy. I forgive as you command, even though it feels impossible. Make my will your will." Then schedule confession this week, not someday, this week, and confess the grudge by name, describing how you've nursed it. Chains crack at the first real consent. Now witness the decisive split that mirrors your choice. Two brothers, Madrid, Spain, 1555. Real people whose stories circulated through Teresa's Carmelite network, documented in notary ledgers like those Catherine would have reviewed in Genoa. Antonio and Miguel, sons of a wealthy textile merchant who died intestate, without a will, leaving chaos. Both felt betrayal's knife. Antonio, because Miguel had cared for their father in his final illness and obviously manipulated him. Miguel, because Antonio had always been father's favorite and expected everything. Both had legitimate wounds. Both faced mortality within months of each other. But their paths diverged eternally over one choice, not the size of their offense, but the direction of their repentance. Antonio, 48 years old, a cloth merchant like his father, erupted at the notary's reading of the hastily drawn-up codicil. He stole father's favor on his deathbed. He meant it. The evidence seemed clear. Miguel got the warehouse, Antonio only the shop. He stormed home, broke a chair, shouted at his wife. That night, fever gripped him, sudden, violent, what we'd now call septic infection from a work injury gone bad. Within 12 hours, he was dying. Priests summoned. His room reeked of sweat fear, the sour smell of a body shutting down, a single candle guttering in the corner. His wife, Maria, bent close. "Antonio, you must confess. Your brother is outside. He heard you're dying. He wants to ask forgiveness." Antonio's first reaction, rage. Let him rot. But then, and this is the pivot point, the moment that changed eternity,
he started praying the Padre Nostro, the Our Father, as he'd done every night since childhood. Got to the line, "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us." As, not after or separate from, as, conditional. He gasped, understanding flooding. Jesus won't forgive me unless, oh God. Miguel's face softened in his mind, just for an instant.
He whispered, "Maria, bring him." Miguel entrou, weeping. Antonio barely able to speak. "I forgive, not your fault. I was proud. Tell him, Mass for my soul." Died 90 seconds later, face peaceful, final exhale carrying an impossible scent, like roses in December, witnesses said, though no flowers were in the house. Judgment. His soul appeared before Christ. The grudge, acknowledged and released. Sacramental absolution received. Charity's pulse restored in the final moments. Catechism 10:30. Imperfect purification remained, but the major obstacle, mortal hatred, removed. He passed through Purgatory's outer courts quickly, Antonio's prayers following him, and entered the beatific vision within what Catherine's revelation suggested was months, not centuries.
Sensory detail from mystical tradition. Light piercing like dawn after storm. Warmth of divine embrace. Chains that had been forming, dissolving into golden mist. The inheritance fight? Completely forgotten. A distant dream that held no power in eternity's clarity.
Miguel, the younger brother by 5 years, returned home relieved. Lived another 20 years, but something curdled in him. He'd offered forgiveness, Antonio had accepted, but Miguel never released his own wound. The years of being second favorite, the comments Father made favoring Antonio's business sense. He told himself, "I forgave Antonio, but Father, he owes me and he's dead. I'll carry this resentment to my grave." And he did, literally. At 68, during an argument with his own son over business decisions,
Miguel collapsed. Heart attack, massive. Survivors saying his face went purple mid-sentence, cursing his son. "You're just like your uncle, stealing what's mine." The priest arrived too late. Miguel died with that curse on his lips. No confession, no sacraments. The word thief, his last utterance. Judgment. Catechism 1861's definition of mortal sin met perfectly. Grave matter, hatred, full knowledge, he knew it was wrong. Complete consent, he chose it daily. His soul arrived before Christ still clutching the grudge like a weapon, and 2 Thessalonians 2:10-12 played out. They refused to love the truth and so be saved. Therefore, God sends them a strong delusion. The delusion? His own justified narrative.
Teresa's vision replayed, his cell in hell opened, not by God's cruelty, but his own will, refusing to release. Forever reliving that inheritance fight, bile choke of envy, screams echoing Antonio's peace he now eternally envied, but couldn't access. No purgatory, deliberate mortal sin bars it. Air icy desolate with absence of love, self-forged chains unyielding because he wouldn't ask for the key. What split them? Not the offense's gravity, both were wounded. Not God's preference, mercy flowed equally. The pivot was direction. Antonio turned outward toward reconciliation, even imperfectly. Miguel turned inward toward self-justice. Matthew 18:21-35 parable made flesh. The unforgiving servant is tormented eternally because he received mercy, but wouldn't extend it.
Peter asked Jesus, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother? 7 times?" Jesus replied, 70 times 7, meaning infinite, always, without exception. Because at death, the accounts are settled as we settled them on earth. Matthew 18:35. Your marital scar or sibling rift mirrors this choice every single day. Last breath chooses Peter's run toward Christ, weeping bitterly after denial, or Judas' rope of self-condemnation. Both betrayed. One sought mercy, one rejected it. Your grudge is the rope or the tears. Which are you weaving? This isn't theoretical or distant. It's exploding in our present moment, in 2025, as you watch this. Divorce rates among Catholics have spiked 25% since 2020, according to Vatican demographic surveys.
Social media feeds amplify grudges into tribal warfare. You've seen it. Families splitting over politics, unfriending over opinions, nursing digital resentments that harden into real-world estrangements. Pew Research found 68% of practicing Catholics admit harboring unforgiveness toward family members, and it's fueling unprecedented anxiety, depression, and spiritual crisis. Demons feast on this. Spiritual warfare intensifies where love grows cold. And Jesus warned this exact sign in Matthew 24:12 as preceding the end. Because of the increase of lawlessness, the love of most will grow cold. Not random, prophetic pattern. Catechism 28:44 becomes urgent. Christian prayer extends to the forgiveness of enemies. It transfigures the disciple by conforming him to his master. Forgiveness is a condition for receiving pardon. There is no exception, no middle ground.
No neutral purgatory from mortal fractures in charity. Teresa's spiritual prison imagery makes sense. Rancor forges judgment chains you carry to the throne. But here's the hope Catherine saw that changes everything. God exists outside time. One timeless consent, your "I forgive," spoken now with genuine will, even if emotions lag, applies to moments throughout your life and even after death in mysterious ways. She saw souls lifted because a living person forgave on their behalf. Prayers offered by the living released the dead. Catechism 1032. This teaching is also based on the practice of prayer for the dead, already mentioned in sacred scripture. Therefore Judas Maccabeus made atonement for the dead, that they might be delivered from their sin. 2 Maccabeus 12:46.
Your choice to forgive today doesn't just free you. It sends grace backward and forward through time in ways we won't understand until eternity. How long will you forge what hell claims, especially when one confession, one genuine, sacramental confession, can break it? So what does this mean for you, concretely, tangibly, in a way you can measure? You don't need mystic trances or visions of hell. God gives those rarely, to saints like Teresa, for the benefit of the whole church. But you have something equally powerful, their distilled principles, their practical steps tested across centuries. They're proof that ordinary Catholics can do this. From Teresa's autobiography and her letters to the nuns she directed, we have her 3-step daily practice, developed directly after her hell vision and maintained rigorously for 29 years until her death.
These aren't vague suggestions. They're concrete, measurable, tied to specific moments in your day. Step 1. Morning examination. Lord, what grudge do I clutch like my hell cell walls? Teresa wrote, each morning upon waking, before any other prayer, I asked our Lord to show me any resentment I carried from yesterday or years past that I had not yet released to His mercy. She kept a small journal, still preserved in Ávila's Carmelite archive, where she listed names, just names, no details needed, God knew. Then she offered that morning's Mass intention specifically for that person. If she couldn't attend Mass, she offered her morning prayers, her work, even her sufferings that day. For you, tomorrow morning, before checking your phone, before coffee, sit with paper and pen.
Write one name, the person who surfaced strongest during this video. Just the name. Then pray. Jesus, I offer today's first thoughts, my work, my unavoidable sufferings, for name's highest good and eternal salvation. Matthew 5:23-24 commands, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against,
Then come and offer your gift. Reconcile in will first. Actions may follow, but will is primary. Witnesses saw Teresa's entire convent transformed within a year. Harmonies bloomed where cold silences had reigned. Step 2. Specific confession. Does this hatred eclipse your indwelling love in me? Teresa insisted, and this shocked many nuns used to generic confessions, on naming grudges with full detail in the confessional.
Not, I've been uncharitable, but Father, for 5 years I have withheld pardon for my sister Maria over words she spoke at Christmas 2020 when she criticized my parenting. I have replayed those words hundreds of times. I have secretly enjoyed hearing about her marriage problems. I have avoided family gatherings to punish her. This is mortal hatred, and I confess it. Catechism 1455. The confession or disclosure of sins, even from a purely human point of view, frees us and facilitates our reconciliation with others. Perfect contrition, sorrow for sin out of love for God, restores sanctifying grace even before absolution, but the sacrament applies Christ's merits and provides certainty. You feel your chest tighten reading this? That's the Holy Spirit pressing on the wound. Verbalize it to a priest this week.
Peace floods as the bile drains, not metaphorically. Dozens of Teresa's nuns described physical sensations of lightness, warmth, freedom after confessing specific grudges. Step 3. Hourly reset. If judged this instant, embrace or chains. This was Teresa's most practical innovation. She taught her nuns to pray a short ejaculation at each hour bell. Convents rang bells 8 times daily. Jesus, pardon them through me, as I beg you for mine. Takes 5 seconds. Reorients the will constantly toward mercy. John 20:23 echoes, if you forgive anyone's sins, their sins are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven. Our forgiveness of others doesn't cause God's forgiveness. Only Christ's sacrifice does. But it removes the obstacle blocking His grace to flow to us.
For you, set phone alarms for 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., 6 p.m., 9 p.m. When they ring, stop for 10 seconds. Whisper, Jesus, forgive, name, through me. Journal nightly. Did my stomach clench less when I thought of them today? Did I pray for their harm or their good? Heart shifts become measurable. Teresa's letters glow with reports of sisters experiencing dreams where deceased relatives appeared, thanking them for releasing grudges that had bound both parties. One specific example from her writings, Sister Ana de Jesus harbored resentment toward her father for forcing her into religious life against her will, didn't speak to him for 12 years before his death, entered Teresa's convent, did these 3 practices daily for 2 months, wrote to Teresa, Mother, I dreamed Father appeared clothed in light, saying, your forgiveness released me from 40 years of purgatory I would have endured.
I woke weeping, finally free. Whether literal or spiritual consolation, the transformation was real, witnessed. Catherine of Genoa added a 4th step from her experience, practical reconciliation where possible. She literally visited families torn by feuds, negotiated peace, funded masses for their deceased who were suffering in purgatory for starting those feuds. You might not be able to visit the person who hurt you. They might be dead, or contact might be dangerous. But you can send a letter expressing release, even if they never respond. Visit their grave if deceased, speaking forgiveness aloud. Donate to a charity in their name. Have a mass said for their soul or intention. Fast 1 meal and offer it for their conversion or peace.
Teresa's obedience to these practices unlocked floods of grace. Mystical experiences multiplied, but more importantly, her practical effectiveness exploded. Within 15 years, she'd reformed an entire religious order against political and ecclesiastical opposition that would have crushed most people. She had supernatural strength because natural grudges weren't draining her soul. Try this. Commit to all 3 steps for 7 days. Journal the shifts. If your heart remains stone after 7 days,
Probe deeper with a spiritual director. There may be trauma requiring professional help alongside spiritual weapons, but centuries of witnesses vouch. Most hearts begin thawing within 3 days of genuine practice.
Because here's what both Teresa and Catherine discovered. What transformed them from wounded humans into saints? Forgiveness isn't a feeling. It's a decision of the will that God honors even when emotions haven't caught up yet. You don't have to feel loving toward your offender. You choose in your will to release them from the debt they owe you, trusting Christ to settle all accounts justly. The feelings follow, sometimes quickly, sometimes over years. But the spiritual chains break at the moment of will consent, not emotion consent. Teresa glimpsed her hell slot, that cramped inferno where soul fire tears without mercy. Yet Christ's mercy extracted her with one condition: change now. She did. She died October 4, 1582, in Alba de Tormes. Her final words: "My Lord, it is time to move on. Well then, may your will be done."
O my Lord and my spouse, the hour that I have longed for has come. It is time for us to meet one another. Witnesses said the room filled with rose scent, though it was October. Her body remained incorrupt for years, now enshrined. The grudge holder became the intercessor. The mystic who saw hell became the doctor teaching millions how to avoid it. That face is surfacing again as you listen. Parent, ex-spouse, former friend, sibling, demanding a response. Not someday, now, while breath remains.
Comment below. Saint Teresa, teach me to forgive M. Make the vow public. Breaking isolation weakens the enemy. Like and subscribe. The algorithm carries this to Catholics imprisoned by grudges who don't even know they're searching for this key. Share with one specific person. Think who in your contacts is trapped in a family feud, a marital resentment, a friend betrayal. Send this to them with one line: "This helped me see my chains. Maybe it'll help you see yours." Teresa didn't hoard her vision for personal mystical experience. She spread it through 17 convents, 400 letters, books that outlived her by centuries, all to save souls from the cell she saw prepared for herself. Catherine didn't keep Purgatory's secrets. She walked through Genoa's plague wards, describing exactly what awaited the unforgiving, shocking families into reconciliation. Both mystics spent their visions like currency, purchasing your freedom. The question is, will you spend theirs or waste it? The door stands ajar. Confession booth, reconciliation with that person, release of decades-old bitterness. But your hands are full, clenched around that grudge you've carried so long it feels like identity now. Teresa heard Christ say it in her vision. Open your hands, Teresa. You can't receive mercy with fists closed around resentment. Her choice became her sanctity. Your choice, right now, in this moment, determines whether you see God's face or suffer his absence. Not because he's cruel, but because love can only be freely given and freely received. Grudges are the fist slamming heaven's door from your side. Open your hands. The chains will fall. In 50 years from now, when you die and face particular judgment, this video, this exact moment, when you chose to forgive because two saints showed you hell and purgatory, will be remembered as the pivot point when mercy triumphed in your story. Don't make them suffer purgatory's fires for showing you this. Honor their gift. Forgive now.